All right, welcome to the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute panel with two amazing creatives. For those who don't know, those who are just tuning in, those who just thought that Gabby and Alitha are amazing, which they are, the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute is an arts, cultural education, and media organization that advances cultural equity, racial and social justice for African descendant communities, which means the entire diaspora of folks who descended from Africa, which is a lot of us, which is great, but also we're all different and beautiful and gorgeous and bring our own stories and unique experiences to the work that we do. And it particularly as it pertains to tonight. So the purpose of today is to unite a group of diaspora women, the three of us, who work in the comics industry. And it's interesting because I love the fact that we have a writer and an artist. For those who are familiar with comics, or if you're new to comics, you're about to learn comics are the ultimate team sport, right? The incredible thing about comics is that you bring the art of writing and you pair it with the art of art, and you bring it to life in panels and pages, and whether it's 22 pages in a single issue, or it is a graphic novel, or it's a trade paperback, which we'll be talking about tonight. And for those who don't know what a trade paperback is, it is a collection of single issues, and it tells a unique and beautiful story in a form that really is a short story type format for those of you who are writers and you want an equivalent. So I'm joined by these two amazing panelists, noted Marvel Comics writer Gabby Rivera and the Color of Power artist Alitha Martinez, who also has done many things for, honestly, every single big house of comics. Let's be real. I've had an opportunity to talk with you many times, Alitha Martinez, about your work, which has spanned multiple decades. Not to age, but to just say you have put in your time. So for those who are watching right now, there's a reminder that we will have question and answer at the end. You can just type into your comment section wherever you are watching right now, whether it is YouTube or it is Facebook Live. Any question that you have, it will be aggregated for us, and we will hopefully be reading and asking as many questions as we can at the end of this to our two panelists. So that being said, in a weird way where I can't ask the audience, did you get all that? I'm going to move on. Because this is the first digital panel, I believe, of this series. And so please bear with us as we are getting used to living in a very digital world and still trying to connect. But are you ready, Alitha and Gabby, to start this panel?
Yes, but start with Gabby first.
Oh my God. I was going to say the same thing.
I know, but I see the words forming on your lips. So I thought,
I'm just going to play roulette, and I'm just going to throw a question out there. And unless it takes too long to get an answer. So for all of you, this is a very important question, and I feel like it defines a creative. Do you have a favorite comic book character? And who is it? Also, not fair to pick America, Gabby. You got to pick another one.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, favorite comic book character is Storm from the X-Men. Like, that's just first and foremost. She is a queen. She is like connected to the elements. I am still mad that there's no Storm like live action movie. You know what I mean? So Storm and Tank Girl. Tank Girl was the first comic, like my dad, was super into comics. Tank Girl was the first comic that he was like, this one's for you. And I loved it. She was bonkers, and I love Tank Girl so much to this day.
That's such a meaningful thing. For those who have not read Tank Girl or have only seen the movie, which was only like a scintilla of what Tank Girl is. It is this incredible, like that's crazy that your dad let you see something from an Australian zine about a girl who rides a tank whose best friend has a plane, and then her arch enemy has like, what is it, a submarine?
They're wild.
It's wild. What about you, Alitha?
Well, my favorite character is Namor. I've always loved Namor. From the moment he appeared, naked right on here, storming the city. Loved it. And my second one is Thor. I like drawing solo male heroes. I like that energy. Those are my favorites all time. Never changed.
Oh, all right. So now that we've established these very true facts that have told me so much about both of you, I want to take a step back so much, because there's a lot of conversation about sex and Namor we're not going to get to right now. But I want to take a step back, and I want to, now that folks have that part of who you are, tell us a little bit about what you do within the comic sector, because I know I've mentioned that Alitha, you are an artist, and Gabby, you are a writer. But I would like to start with Alitha. What does that mean to be a comic artist? What is your job? How does that work? For the little girl who's 9 years old at home, who's like, do I want to do this? What does that mean?
I draw the pretty pictures, and I've been drawing them since they let the animals off the ark. I've drawn it. It's been so long. It's at this point, you ask me, who haven't I drawn? Well, that's Superman and Wonder Woman, but everybody else, I think I've touched them at least once. A Dark Horse stuff, haven't done their stuff either. Something to think about. But that means you just draw the pictures. I've always wanted to tell a story. I came into comics to tell a story, and I've gotten to tell many, many wonderful stories.
I love that, because I think it's interesting for those who don't know, like you really, like you're not, Alitha is not joking. Alitha has literally worked for DC, Marvel, Boom, like across the board, has drawn almost every single major house, and really has touched the X-Men, the Avengers, Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur. So I'm shouting it out so everybody knows, like, that was not an exaggeration by any means. And Gabby, on the other hand, writes the voice and the scripts that go with this. And can you tell a little bit of the background about what you do?
Sure. Also, Alitha is like, so I've been quiet like this whole time because I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to be on a panel with you. Like, I just had to say that. I finally got it out. What do I do? Oh my gosh. I just spend like all my days daydreaming up the most wild stories I could think of. And then I write them down. And if you do that enough, you turn around and you're a writer. That's it. It's like, what are the most wild adventures? And then with comics, which is different from fiction writing, which is where my background is. In comics, I had to learn how to tell stories in squares and like in like the smallest, most beautiful details, And so yeah, if you are somebody, like if you're like a little baby queer and you're like, should I write comics? 1, yes. 2, do it. Anything that you make or you write can be a comic.
I love that. Stories and squares. I'm stealing it. I'm gonna put your name below it, but that makes me so happy, because that in a nutshell really is what it is. And so now we want to jump back, because I want to also talk about, like, these are big, lofty things. You were now successful writer and artist, but once upon a time you were baby fan. You picked up a comic book. There was a thing. Because one of the things I do love about folks who work in the comic book industry is that no one who works in the industry is not a fan. Like, something brought them to the industry and particularly made them want to do comics because it is so unique. Do you feel like there was a particular character, a particular series, a particular comic book that drew you into comics? All puns intended, Alitha, made you love it. Not necessarily made this want to be a career, but made you love comic books as a fan. We'll start off with Gabby.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, mine is a little like, My story into comics is a little different, right? So like I was writing young adult fiction. I don't draw, so I had actually never thought that I would be in comics. And then when my book Juliet Takes a Breath came out, Marvel Comics reached out about America Chavez. And so then there I was like, do I do this? Am I allowed to do this? I've never done this before. And everything in my head was like, you know what? Who cares? That's the most fun you'll ever have. Like, just do it. You know how to write a story. At the bare minimum, you can at least do that. And so that was kind of like my push into comics. And I think maybe for me, what really got me into, the art form are graphic novels. So the Love and Rockets series, maybe isn't a graphic novel, but the Love and Rockets series, that kind of gave me some foundation in like, not just I can do this, but like how cool it could be to do it, like how wildly creative and reflective of who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I love that. And I know you guys see me like looking at my desk, but I felt sad because I had my America Chavez pin. I was gonna wear it tonight, and I don't know where she went. But America Chavez is and it's such an amazing. It's just amazing. I love America. So
thank you.
What about you, Alitha?
First, I'm not ashamed to say I've been doing this for 20 years. And when I first started, there was none of that inclusiveness. None of this environment did not exist. So if you ask me what brought me to comics, I started with a drive. I knew I was going to tell stories. That's something I had to hide growing up, because being daughter of immigrants, they don't bring you to this country. You're not here to waste their time. You are here to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an electrical engineer, and nothing else. Everything else is a waste of your family's effort. So to say that you want to draw and you want to try to do this professionally, it's like, you want to do what? You might as well tell them you want to go catch unicorns. They're not having it. So it's something I hid. I drew it. No one was going to take me to an art store to buy drawing paper. That wasn't going to happen. So I drew in the margin of books. I drew on the back of my schoolwork. Anything just to draw. And when they find too many of these drawings, well, they get torn up and thrown away. So buying comics, there was no comic book stores close by in Florida. There was nothing for me to grasp a hold of and love, except what I saw on television for the most part. First, Robotech, Voltron, Transor Z, those wonderful, wonderful cartoons that told me two things. Well, number one, characters can die and they can change their clothes. Two wonderful things. Forged my love of that story. And I'm like, I want to tell these stories. And really the very first thing that sparked that in me, I can recall, is hearing Beowulf. I said, oh my God, he's a superhero. I just know he is. It's something amazing. And I can see it before me, and hearing it in its original language. You're like, I have to get involved in this, but I didn't know how. It was impossible. I literally left Florida with a guitar and a duffel bag, coming up here, trying to fight my way into this industry. It wasn't something I can just decide to do that. No, it's something you fought for. You open that door, because that was a door that literally I was told on multiple, over and over and over. I can't even start many, many times. I've heard women don't draw comics, girls don't draw comics, and women of color do not draw comics, period. After I've done it, now look how it's changed. Everyone's here. You can do it. You can walk in the door. You can tell your stories. You don't hear that definitive no that I heard.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to be very clear about how many characters you have touched, because that is so unique. For those who have been in this space, like when you think about my favorite character, and just so y'all feel better, because I'm gonna say it, my favorite character is Monica Rambeau, because Monica Rambeau is from New Orleans. She is a superhero. She was the leader of the Avengers, and she was a Black woman. And I am from New Orleans, and I too lead Avengers in my own mind. And and she was not created by a woman of color. She has been touched by women of color. Like, she has been written, like they have written for her here and there, but that is so unique, because a lot of times the characters that are for us are not always created by us. And so to have a woman of color who is out there touching these characters and changing their canon or or their costumes or how they're narrated, it means a lot. And so, you know, I think, you know, the next question that makes sense to me is, okay, so you love comics, you have favorite characters. How did you get your start? And I'm going to start with Alitha because Gabby kind of a little bit touched on it. And so we want to talk a little bit more about that process, about what it means to shift from YA to comics, because I think it is a shift. But Alitha, you got your start in a really interesting way. So what was your first job? How did you get started in the comics book industry?
Well, I put together a portfolio, and this is without guidance truly about what you need. 5 pages, action, talking, splash page. And I went to a comic book convention, and they were smaller. I met Joe and Jimmy, and after meeting a lot of other little artists at the same time and please look at my portfolio. And they'd say, oh, it doesn't look like a girl drew this. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And my friends encouraged me, go talk to Joe, those two. That's Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti. And they look like bouncers. I'm like, no, can't. But I did. And Joe looked at my portfolio and he told me he's going to give me a trial by fire. And the next Monday he called me and I became his ghost on Azrael Ash. That continued through the establishment of Marvel Knights. And then from there, I got to work with Mark Texeira on Black Panther. That was like my first run and first credited work. Worked a little on Black Widow. And then I got Iron Man. And it's been just that roller coaster from Iron Man till now.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Joe Quesada, who has done a lot of work at Marvel, has over Marvel Knights, is still at Marvel. And Palmiotti is most famously known for being married to Amanda Conner, and obviously also a lot of the work done at DC, including the Harley Quinn series that Birds of Prey is kind of based off of. They're cool people, I guess. They do things, but that's who they are. So to say like how prolific it was that Alitha was like, here's my work. And they're like, this is great. And of course it is. It's great. And so, you know, that's, you know, how it's a very small world. Right. And so for you, Gabby, you kind of started on the outside of the world a little bit. How did that kind of transpire? Because you were an author before you became a comic book author, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's like the work that I've done, like writing Juliet Takes a Breath, my novel, and you know, that kind of led me to comics, right? Like Marvel came my way, asked me if I would write about America Chavez, and I really had to sit with myself and decide if that was something I was capable of doing, if that was something I was like allowed to do, you know. And yeah, I just kind of did my homework too, right? Like I went in there and was like, this is a world, this comic book industry, this is something that is like really dear to people's hearts. People take this seriously. Like this is a religion in a lot of, you know, in a lot of respects. And so I just like, as someone totally new to it, and, you know, not as a collector myself, my dad read a lot of Batmans and Supermans and stuff like that. I just wanted to come in respectfully and do my homework. And thankfully, the folks at Marvel, Will and Sarah, who are the editors of America, they welcomed me with open arms and offered me all of their expertise. Like when we had Storm come in, I was like, I want America to have mentorship. I want her to be mentored by Storm, right? Like, let's do it. When I brought up that idea, Will and Sarah were so into it, and they were like, here's almost everything we wrote from the 1980s with Storm and the Mohawk. Do your homework. You know, and so there was so much room to learn and grow in the beginning with Marvel, that going from fiction, I had the support. The writing part, that was the challenge, right? Like it was challenging to learn how to write for comics, but
What was the biggest challenge for you? Because I know I've heard from a lot of, I have literally talked to a number of prose writers and short story writers, and I don't want to guess, but I feel like there's like one thing that changes dramatically, and I'm asking specifically because I'm about to throw a question back.
It's the realest thing. Look, I get all these pages in the book. I get all of these pages to be like, and then her luxurious hair, blah, blah, blah. No, in comics, you get your panel, you have your dialogue. You don't even get a lot of dialogue. What? You get like maybe 15 words at the most. And I had to learn how you could do so much with just like one word or like a plot. Like one well-placed sound effect, like one well-placed, like how to use that one square to tell like the whole story, right? Visually, like that. That was a beautiful challenge. That's something that still challenges me. You know what I mean? Like, I still feel like I definitely just got here, you know? So there's so much to learn.
But, you know, you turn that script over to somebody like Alitha, who has to then do magic.
So much magic.
So much magic. You know, for those who don't necessarily understand the process, like, you know, this script that Gabby is talking about is then handed over to Alitha. Alitha, what's the next step? Because, you know, at the end of the day, a comic book isn't a comic book without an artist.
Yeah. Well, first I brace myself and then I read it. Sometimes you got to brace yourself before you read it because you never know what you're going to get. They'll tell you, yeah, you're going to work on this. And then you get the script, you know, that's your first thought. Then you get over that quickly. And then you go into like breaking it down, meaning the first read through, it's not a script. It's a series of panels and it tells me how much work I have to do on each page. The second time I read it, it's a movie. So it's running through I'm watching the characters act. I'm then, you know, looking at it and I read it over and over until I can actually see them moving like a movie in front of me. Then I try to capture those pictures, those images from that movie in clips. And sometimes that has almost nothing to do with the script because some, especially new writers, definitely not Gabby. Your work is amazing. It's amazing. You are who I want to be when I grow up. It's true. But it's just a snapshot, as if you're able to take a Polaroid, describe what's going on in that Polaroid alone and nothing else, move on to the next panel. It can't be, she got out of the car, she ran into the building, she stripped, and then she took a shower and called somebody all in one panel. It's not happening. But I've read panels like that. So that's why that movie is very important. So I can select what's necessary to show here if it's not clear. And then I sit down and I start to draw. And before it was when you're penciling, you're just penciling. Now you're penciling and inking. And very rarely do I get to work with inkers anymore. I mean, that book has to be super solid late for me to have an inker. Other than that, when I get that job, it's like these pictures coming up. It's just full. You're doing everything. And that means all the computer work. That's the part no one talks about. So after I put in 8 to 12 hours at my desk trying to finish 2 to 3 pages every single day, just as full, what do I have to do? I go to the computer and this is where my time management goes out the window because it takes so long to clean and prep that page to be sent that you go, wow, I've sat here another 4 or 5 hours. You're like, So when do you sleep as a comic book artist, boys and girls? Never.
Yeah, I was Alitha, you sleep?
No, not really. Not really.
Yeah, last time I checked, that was not well, and I think it's really interesting, right? Because there's all of these very quirky antidotes between the panels, or the story happens in the white space. No, the story happens where the artist draws the story. That's where the story happens. Your imagination may exist in that white space, but you have to get that motion to those spaces. You know, and I think it's interesting, and I kind of want to throw this out. Every artist has their favorite type of thing to do. They have to do the other things to pay the rent. I get it. But, you know, there's always a favorite type of character or a favorite type of story. You know, Alitha, is there a favorite type of character or story or just, type of costume, type of moment that you like to draw, because, there is joy in all of this work. And people have their sweet spots.
Yeah, like it's been difficult through this quarantine to even get yourself started, because every day's a shock. Every day's something new. Every day's something. But today, something like brilliant happened that totally reminded me about why I picked up a pencil in the first place. There was a flyby by the Blue Angels, the flyover, and the Thunderbirds. I heard them before I saw them, and they just zoomed by in two V formations with the one plane in the back. And I'm telling you, I was 12 years old again, standing in a field in Florida, hearing that sonic boom go overhead, race home and start drawing, because that's my passion. That's what I love, that space, that opera, that Robotech, that feeling. I'm telling you, I was right there today. I was so excited. I got out, like I said, oh God, the flame. And people like, I don't know, should they waste so much money on that? Yes, they should waste the money on that, because it makes you feel like, I can't even describe that heat, that passion. I'm like, oh my God, I can draw again, and it don't feel this like I'm in a box anymore. Then I'm like, oh, I've got pages due. I gotta be good. But man, just sit down and draw a jet fighter. That's where I want to be right now.
Wow, I love that. What about you? Is there a favorite genre, story type, or medium that is like you really love to write, or even you challenge yourself to get to writing? Because I know the journey of a writer is a long one.
Oh my God, first, Alitha, I just kind of love you so much. Like, I want to just sit here and listen to your stories, and like that energy of like feeling alive and feeling ready. Like, that is the wave. That is the thing you got to jump onto sometimes, like I love it. Thank you. And for me, like, I have a soft spot for like girls on adventures. I have a soft spot, like, when we brought in Hawkeye for America, and America Chavez and Hawkeye go on they go to Vegas. I was like, what's the ultimate, like, two babes on the road, like,
in a convertible
comedy? Yeah, in a convertible, right? Like, to Vegas, there's a boxing match. I like big adventure best friend stories. That's just like my soft place. You know what I mean? Like, growing up, my parents were super strict, super religious. So I wasn't allowed to go to my friends to sleepovers when I was young. You know what I mean? Like, I really had to, I wasn't allowed to even go play in the park. So I'm there in my room wishing I could go on adventures, and a lot of times wishing I even had friends. You know what I mean? Like, it was, and so now I'm this grown up, and I get to like write those stories into existence, right? And take two queer, chubby, brown girls and give them the adventure of a lifetime. You know what I mean? And yeah, so I love doing that. And also, one of the things that I loved was creating like a healing space, right? For America Chavez, she goes to the ancestral plane because I wanted her to have healing and to have like a moment to see her people and her history, because there's adventure in that. And in like breaking down our histories and diving into those stories, like we further the possibility for something majestic, So yeah.
Sotomayor University makes me so
happy. Oh my God. Yeah, Sotomayor.
Well, and the funny thing is that's where kind of the paths cross, in that Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur make a cameo and on Sotomayor University when all heck breaks loose. And Alitha has actually drawn Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. So it's kind of like 6 degrees of separation-ish situation. So it was a great
one big family.
Ugh.
My allergies are starting to act up. It's like, why the tree?
It's all right. It's okay to get emotional, Alitha. I get it.
Tell you, it's the robots fighting. It's time now.
They make you cry. I get it. It's very emotional. So I bring all, like, I think this is like a great segue to state the obvious that we are all women of color. And that women of color do bring something to the table, not because we're Black or we're Latina or we're mestizo. Like, we're like, it's because we have different experiences. And I think both of you have touched on so beautifully how your experiences have shaped what you love, shaped what you want to write, shaped what you want to draw, shaped how you see the world. And I think, you know, for me, I think every single creator brings something to the table. Do you feel like for you in the process of you telling a story or how you do art, that there's something that you personally want to bring to the table in those stories? Like you're like, not necessarily like, oh, I have a personal agenda, I want to talk about this thing, but like the thing that you feel like, oh, this is I see the world like this, and so this is how I see that story differently than someone else may see it. I'll start with Gabby.
Listen, like I said before, I'm a softie, right? And so I am trying to move with as much joy and compassion as I possibly can. I am trying to use language that is joyful, that, you know, even in the world of comics, like for me, I'm like, one of the things they had to remind me to do in America, they were like, you have to make her fight. And I was like, can't she just come with understanding?
Gabby, people have to put, it's a comic, she's a superhero, she's got to punch stars in the sky, like that's the thing.
I had to learn that. I had to find fun ways, because I'm here like, can't she just be in loving community? No, so they have to be like, Gabby, she got to fight somebody. And so, I had to learn how to do both. And so for me, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of love and tenderness in the Bronx. There's a lot of love in urban environments, but there's also like a really tough language and a tough way of being in community with each other, where, you know, you're constantly kind of ready for a push or a bump or the freaking police. You know what I'm saying? And so that has led me to want to always kind of put loving and joyful and compassionate language that pushes young people to be like tender with themselves and inquisitive and like, you know, like soft hippie love and bouncy adventurous, let's go fight the bad guys kind of thing.
I love it. I love it. What about you? Is there something you feel like you bring to the table in your art?
Well, I try very hard.
Oh, wait, I think I had a lag.
Yeah, you had a little lag. I try very hard to draw above the board. I don't want you to see too much of me in everything that I do. If you've seen my work, I don't have a set style. It changes according to the title I'm on. And it's that versatility that allows me to stretch and try and challenge myself to do new things. I'm not at the point in my career, or I don't really think that women in the industry are at the point where they can be just totally in love or totally, you shouldn't, I'm not, it's hard for me to say this in the way I really mean it to come out, is that you've got to fight, and you've got to be willing to fight. I'm only just now being recognized as a person. I went for the better part of 12 years before anybody even realized that I was a woman, much as a woman of color, much as anything else. You are the art, and that's what's important to me. So that when you see my art, you don't know that it's me behind it. You see it because you love this art and you want to pick it up. You want to experience what I'm showing you. And then you get the horrible shock that, oh my God, a woman's drawn it. Because I'm still facing that question of, can she do it? So that every book I do is, can she do this? Can she draw that? If there becomes a question the instant they realize that I'm a woman. If they don't know that, they just enjoy that art. I've been in situations where they're passing around art and they're like, oh, who drew this? Who's this? And they're showing it to all the guys. And none of those guys drew it. It was me. But the instant they realize it's me, it gets so quiet. And I'm still wondering what that quiet means. But what I see is that when girls look at it, when minorities look at it, when other people who come from my background and my situation look at it, they see that they can do it too, that you can rise, you can stand, you belong here. This is your space. So more than anything else, I don't need you to see that. I need you to recognize that I am an artist that I am valid because I've been here. I've lasted. It's not a gimmick. I've been here 20 years, and I'm hoping to draw till my deathbed, to the very end. And someone else, please come take my place.
I love it. I love it. I kind of want to take a step back to process. One, thank you for that. Like, thank you for that. Because I think, one of the questions I was holding on asking was, for both of you, do you feel like the industry has evolved since you entered? Because I know, Alitha, you've kind of talked about it a couple of times about how the space is very different. And it is very different. My job a lot of times is to look back historically about where they are, and you can't pretend that the voices were not there. Like you can't, because they weren't. And so, even having America Chavez as a queer character, and that was one of the things that drew me. I was like, wait, there's a queer woman of color in comics, like mainstream comics? Say more. And so, but for you, both as fans and as creatives, how do you feel, if you feel, that things have changed since you started? And I know, Alitha, you touched on it a little bit, so I want to toss this out to Gabby first. Just, and if you feel like there's need for more expansion and what that looks like.
Listen, when it comes to the industry, I've got to be honest. I feel like I've, in a sense, maybe stepped away from that. I don't know. Right now I'm with Boom, and that feels very much more like a home. And when it came to America, there was so much backlash, and there were threats against me and my life, and just so much that I completely just rolled it all back, And in order for me to continue doing anything creative, I didn't think I was ever going to do another comic after America, right? Because I was just like, oh, they hate me and I must suck at this, and I'm harming. This is harmful to me. This is harming me. It wasn't until I had to take a minute and find my way. And I did not want to do anything with the industry. It was up to the moment when I was connecting with people, right? It was when I started slowly going to comic book stores and doing signings and connecting with folks who are actually reading the work that something shifted, and I felt well, maybe I could do this again. And so the industry, I don't really have too much to say, but I will say the community of folks that I have met, that I am learning from, the artists, right? Over here in California, there's a whole bunch of comic artists, Brina Nunez, Lawrence Lindell, Trinidad Escobar, right? That are have opened their circles up and include me, and have taught me how to do work with the community, with people. And comics is that sort of vital element, And so to me, I'm the industry, man, as long as we're doing anti-racist work, pro-Black woman work, we're combating transphobia, homophobia, we will make our own industry. You know what I'm saying? That's the magic, right? And so to me, it's am I evolving? Am I making sure to connect with folks? What are we making? What are we doing? Do we need an industry that's telling us it doesn't want us anyway? My answer to that is always no, I don't care.
Toss it to you, Alitha.
Well, I'm so sorry you had that experience coming in. I hate to hear that we're still on that level, that we're still down here fighting that kind of fight. And it's because there's a separation, that us and them mentality. We have this good old boy network that's still alive and well. And they are holding on to that. And you'll see, I have trouble connecting to fans. I don't listen to fans. I don't listen to anybody. I only listen to my editor because I need to work to feed my child. I need to work to further this because I can't stop drawing. I want to, but I can't stop it. And the big part is that it bothers me to no end that I'm frightened we'll be left out of this narrative entirely. That when this whole fad passing, because I've been here long enough to see things come and go, roll and come in and out. what happens when the interest dies down? What happens if not enough people buy these books? They cancel them very quickly. And that good old boy network is there, so you could snap right back to it immediately. When you recently, I'm asked in an interview if I was intimidated to draw Wolverine, being he's a male character. That's my specialty, solo male heroes. I didn't draw a female hero until Batgirl in 2012. That's a long time to go without drawing any type of women at all in comics. So I say, oh, but they only remember now. They live in this now. We need that longevity. We need to be there in that big picture. So while I love everything that's coming in and everything that's being added and the community is growing and there's a core that is stubborn to change. They won't change. It hurts me that it won't change. I'm praying that before my 2 eyes close, I get to draw Superman, because that's a book that very few women, if any woman, has touched. Wow. I think Superman needs a little Alitha, because,
yes,
that's for me.
But every campaign, we need to start that signature campaign, because it's got to happen. You need to draw Superman. Like, what do we got to do? That's the next one of those things that you can send and be like, Congress, sign this bill. We need to get you one of those. I want that.
Alitha for Superman? I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, the only thing about doing that is I realize the one thing I know about this industry, that once done, it's always done. So if it's done, someone else will do it, and it will become common, and that door will fall. And now we'll have more inclusion, and there'll be more, and we'll be here. You won't just be a woman of color. You will be an artist. That's the only word that'll be mentioned when they say my name. That's all I want, just to be an artist, to be recognized as an artist. Don't ask me if I can draw something. Don't doubt that I can draw something. I mean, what in the world more do I have to draw? Do I have to go up and draw a portrait of God at this point? I can do this. I'm fit for this work. Yeah. Allow me to do it.
Yeah. So I want to open it up, and I want to make sure that folks who are watching at home can ask questions. Again, please, if you have a question for Gabby or Alitha, type them in your comment section, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on Facebook Live. All you got to do is go down to the comments, type it in, because I want to make sure that this is interactive and that we are engaging. I could ask questions for hours, although I am sure both of these wonderful women would like to go to sleep at some point in time or get back to the work that they have to do. But, I think the really cool thing also for those artists out there who are thinking about now, how do they get into the industry? What is the process for them? I kind of want to take a step back and go for Gabby, from pitch to story concept, from what does it look like to be an author? Like, how does this, you wake up and you tell stories, you get that. But like, there's this process of pitching and story concept and outlining and working with editors. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about, how that process works for someone who may not be familiar.
Okay. So there's there's two modes, right? Like, there are some people who do the pitching. They will submit to this organization. They will submit stories here. They will pitch for agents. They will, really put that level of hustle in it, right? And I love that. But for me, I put the hustle in, right? But it was just different. My thing was, I never expected to make my way into white people publishing world. I never expected to go on a book tour. I never thought that was even a lane. And so while that might be a little harmful, there was still an element of it that was like, well, since I'm not going to make it into that shit, since I'm not going to make it into there, then I'm going to do my own thing. And I'm going to build community with the Latina writers of New York City. And I'm going to network with, build community with the folks at the New Eurekan. And so my whole circle was just filled with writers that loved me, writers that I would babysit their kids and they'd read my work. And the more writers that I made my family and that I became family with, the more the options for publishing grew and grew. And the more it was like, oh, well, if this place doesn't publish you, then I'll talk to my publishers, And so I just focused on that, writing my work, There was no stories about like Puerto Rican chubby queer girls from the Bronx. There was no stories I felt like that were accessible in my language and the way that I speak, my energy. And so I just did all that. I wrote all that, and my community supported me. And so that, right? Like I had this indie book published out in the world, and an agent came to me and was like, I love your work. I want to represent you, right? I did my hustle with the indie publishing, mailing my book out to LGBT centers, mailing my book out to people's gay baby cousins for free because I believe in my work. And that leading it to get a little audience so that like Penguin comes to me and wants to republish, right? I'm like, I've been fighting real hard to really live into what is for me is gonna come to me, you know, with my hustle, with my dedication. But what is for me is gonna come for me. And like, I don't know, you know, that process of submitting, I felt like that rejection was similar to like what I experienced in college sometimes with like white professors not seeing me or thinking that I need to do something a certain way with a certain professional, like kind of like white sensibility, right? You know, I had to, no, I think that if people want to do that and you want to, that's your lane. Yes, there's a lot of good folks in the publishing industries. There's a lot of good people of color there too. We need diverse books. But for me, I was just like, man, listen, y'all don't want me. You never wanted me. So I'm not going to try to smack my head against the wall to get into your world. And now look, I'm here anyway. And I did it the way I wanted to do it, you know?
Yeah. Similar, Alitha. So like art is has evolved. Comics has evolved. There is no bullpen anymore, for good or for bad. There is no bullpen anymore.
Right here.
Home, right? And so there's this different process where artists live everywhere. You happen to live in New York, but artists live in Ireland, and I just got off the phone with somebody in Argentina and Spain and all of these different places. You know, what does it look like for you? And I know there are a couple artists that I've heard, I have had a lot of people ask this question, and we're about to get to everyone's live questions. Thank you for asking. What's your line on digital versus paper? I know that's like such a like very simple question, but it's like a real question, man.
Why is that a war? They're just tools. That's all. I still draw traditionally, but you have to learn Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign because you have to do all that trafficking and bullpen work that is now fallen on the artist to do from the kindness and charity of their hearts. So with my kindness and charity, I had to learn how to do Photoshop. I had to learn how to letter a comic book. I had to learn how to take it all the way to camera-ready art, including coloring it. So I started off as a pure penciler, meaning I just penciled and turned the work in and voila, it's done. Somebody else's, that's the other people's job. No, now it's like, well, here, we want you to do this cover and you got to color it and it's coming all the way out. It's like, so there's no more of that. It's just new skills to learn. Digital versus digital means, well, guess what? I don't have any pages to sell. All of the old pages that I've done that are completely those huge 11 by 17s, those are dinosaurs. I'm working half that size now. And maybe in pieces. So there'll be a panel on one page. And then what happens to it, if I showed you one of those Wolverine pages that's been torn up, just because they get thrown down, I'm not kind to my art. Because when you do a lot of pages, I know right now there's people screaming. They're like, what? What? Yeah, I destroy a lot of pages because those, you're only as good as your next book. Those have already been done. That's over. So something like this page is up. I got all of those things wrong on that costume. I love Spider-Man though, but drawing the costume, the webbing, I got wrong. So they were upside down. So I went in digitally and fixed them. You can't have one without the other. You have to know both. You have to be versatile only because what if there's no computers and you have work due and you cannot draw by hand? What? Why is there a fight? These are tools. Learn them all.
Yeah. So, okay, all right. We're going to start on the questions that have been kind of posed in. We're not going to get to everyone's, but there are a couple questions. So George asks, how are both of you staying creative these days?
I have no choice. Wait a minute, creative. That
Meaning, like, are you working on any projects? Like, how are you keeping yourself? Are you sharpening your skills? And how are you doing that?
yeah, I've got
Besides
to.
math, because
But I'm slower now. It's a lot of tragedy and it hurts. So for the first time in my career, I'm actually extremely slow and finding myself, you know, going into recovery phases and then feeling good one day, another day you're not feeling so good, but then everything is still due. So you still have to find it. You've got to find it. And I tell myself, just do one panel. You don't have to, you're not going to work at pre-quarantine speeds. Just do that one panel. And I also teach at SVA. So I've got to get that prepared. And, you know, looking forward to traveling again for the US State Department, because I go talk about comics on all over the world and get people involved here. And they love seeing the Marvel stuff, and it like brings joy and happiness to people. But for myself, I had to become very small and try for that one panel, and then forgive myself if today I wasn't able to do it.
What about you, Gabby?
I mean, right along with that, like you said it perfectly, for real. It's been that like quiet, hard to generate, but you know, you just have to find your way.
So we haven't. I just want to have a moment for those answers. Like, because I think that's a realness that a lot of folks are now embracing.
Yeah. And
that's a realness I think at first folks didn't want to embrace, because no one wanted to seem like because we live in a world where it's produce. And when you're at, look, man, I'm human. Hi, I'm not a robot. Like, I have emotions and feelings and a mental state. So I don't want to rush off of those answers. I want people to be able to process that it's okay to not get to that panel or that page or that paragraph, because we don't really live in that world. That's not the world we lived in 7-8 weeks ago, at all. So, but
it's not just us either, right? Like a lot of writers, you know, like Liz Acevedo, I mentioned her. She did the Poet X. She's been online talking about how like the space for the creative new work, the stuff that is you're just trying to generate, like that feels so far away. It feels like a space I can't access. Whereas with projects like BB that I've already been working on, and maybe like some other stuff, like projects that are already in place, I can kind of like go to that and the road is there. But if I got to build the road, it's been really tough. I feel like shell shock maybe is a good word.
Very true.
Word. So we have a question from Stephanie that's a little bit more procedural, and I think it's kind of cool. How do you feel about creator-owned also being a place for women of color comic creators, and places like Webtoons, which I think a lot of creators of color and women of color actually started in digital comics and Webtoons at the very beginning, because it feels like that was the first democratization of getting your artwork out there in mass. But I leave it to both of you guys. Sorry, I had feelings about that.
Go on, Gabby.
No, Alitha, that's all you.
Oh,
that's all you.
Y'all get it. Y'all are being so polite.
my experience with that is different. I have creator-owned titles, my Yumi and Ever and my book Foreign. But for me, coming from mainstream into that world, it seems like I'm doing it backward to other people starting there and coming here. So that I'm finding that I get a lot of that us and them thing. I'm not readily accepted into any other community. It's very difficult. They look at my work and they'll say it's either too polished or it's something like you're one of them. It's like you don't really belong in their community, or you don't belong with them. It's like you're trying to take something away from them. I'm just wanting to create my own story, because for all of the stories I've told all these decades, I haven't told my own story not one time yet, not one time, unless it's something that I typed up myself, made my son, my little sweatshop here, we produce books that we go out and sell at conventions. That's my only way to do it. Yeah, I have a whole sweatshop. Child labor laws, come get me. But I have to make them at home, because I have the need to create, but nobody wants to hear it if it's not tagged with Marvel, DC. Oh, look what no. If you see my booth at a convention, it's only my stuff, my foreign, my You Me and Never, nothing else. Because they don't need me to sell their books, period.
Word. Gabby,
I saw you. You have the last word on that one.
Word. For those who are watching right now, we have a couple more minutes to ask questions. So if you have any questions, please make sure you're typing those into the comments. You know, I think this brings like up a very poignant question that I really love asking writers and artists because it's always different. This industry isn't easy. Like, I think that's been made very clear. It's full of joy and creativity and stuff that we love and punching stars and skies and sexy Namors. But this industry it's not easy. You know, what keeps both of you grounded and focused kind of in this chaos of deadlines and submissions and pitches? Alitha.
Really? I was looking at Gabby.
It was the first time. I waited until 55 minutes in.
No, you did. I was like, oh, Gabby's going to have something great to say. I can't wait to hear this. Good. No, for me, I told you, it's that drive. I've had it since I was a child. I think I was born with it. It's just that thing that if I ask myself, and I tell my students or anyone else, if you really want to do this, it's like, if there is no audience, if no one is ever going to read your book, if there are no people left, it's only you, would you still draw? It's like, the answer is yes. It's like, well, then this is for you, because this is literally for you. You're doing it for you to express yourself. It has nothing to do with the audience. It has nothing to do with but you need to tell a story, and you will tell that story. If there's no audience, no one, you'll tell it. They'll find my drawings on a cave wall because it's in me to do it. That's just it. There's nothing else. So aside from, I don't do it for fame, not for fortune, definitely not for fortune. Good Lord. Ooh, definitely not that, but you do it because it's in you.
Gabby?
Oh my gosh. Yes to that. And also, like, the world is just mired in like white supremacy and violence, right? So like, it's my job. I feel like when I get up in the morning, I'm like, no, I'm gonna share my, like, all of my identities, my queerness, my Puerto Ricanness, my butchness, all of that stuff. I'm gonna share that because somewhere there's some kid out there who's being force-fed this never-ending cacophony that they're not enough, that they're not worthy, that they don't belong here, that this country isn't for them, that they shouldn't speak the language that they were raised speaking, that they shouldn't dress the way that they were raised to dress, that their hair should be a different. Every freaking day, some BS system is telling them that they are not enough, that it's okay to be homophobic, it's okay to be transphobic or sexist. You don't even get me started. So knowing all of that is like, no, I'm going to get up every morning. I'm going to be right here, soft and happy as the day is long. I'm going to write my stories, and you cannot stop me. I'm going to make sure that I do my due diligence and project queer, happy, joyful futures for kids of color everywhere into everything I do. And in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a rainstorm, in the middle of a field of butterflies, I'm going to keep doing that same work. And, you know, your white supremacy can go sit somewhere else by itself with its terrible stories. and like, you know, you deal with that. We could be joyful over here. I'm just not, you're not, you know, that's it. I'm not letting you. You can't, like, you're not taking this from me. You're not taking this from us.
One, I think that's interesting because we just got a question from a viewer, Kristen, who said, when you're in that hard place dealing with the negative reception from predominantly white audiences, you know, what brings you out of that funk? And that's, I mean, not sure if you covered it or if there's something else, but like, I feel like that was perfect timing for that.
They don't write my checks. I don't care what they have to say. Excuse me, what? Huh? What funk? No one, not a soul, and I promise you, you hear it, no one affects my ability to draw or produce like that. You don't have that kind of power over me. You are not why I'm here. And you're definitely not why I stay. So please, you're not writing my checks. Marvel writes my checks. DC writes my checks. Legendary writes my checks. That's it. I always say, if I get into like the midnight Alitha, I have certain words I say about this, but no, Right. Who are these people you're talking about? They affect the way you work? Really?
I mean, they have. I was not expecting the level of violence. I was not expecting that level of hate, just because, you know, it's not that I haven't seen it. It's not that I don't know that it's part of the fabric of this country, right? But I just wasn't expecting it. And then there it comes and it gets you, you know, and it's like, when do we get to finally really de-emphasize the opinions and the receptions of white people anyway? Like, why is that still such a barometer of success? You know, like, why? I'm so over elevating that stuff too. Like, of course they're gonna hate our work. Of course they're gonna hate a work, something that I create, because it's not for them. You can accept my work the same way that I accept your work, and the same way that I can make myself identify with the Iron Mans and the Supermans and the Batmans, right? The same way that I have to take this and imprint it on the thing that you created of yourself. You can do that with my work too. It probably make you a better person, actually.
I love it. I love it. So we have 2 more questions from the audience that I am going to take. As a wannabe author, and this is from Anna, as a wannabe author, what's the best way to look for and approach an artist to do a story? And what are some obnoxious beginner mistakes new authors make in that relationship? Wow, that's a loaded question, but here I have asked it.
Yes.
Alitha.
Why do you do that to me?
Let us know what we're doing wrong.
Again, I don't.
Well, you have worked with new comic book authors a number of times, and
but I don't do it for free.
Huh? Would you say you don't do it? I know you don't do it for free. So let's bring up a good example where a very good writer who was not a comic book writer worked with you on a World of Wakanda. And I wouldn't say there were mistakes made, but I will say that there's a learning curve when you have new writers who are beginner writers. So not even beginner writers, like this is a published author who I'm a huge fan of. So let's be real and let's state, but not a comic book writer, right? So like even the Saladin Ahmeds and the Roxane Gays and the Yona Harbys or the Ta-Nehisi Coates, who was not a comic book writer, comic book fan, not a comic book writer, before he wrote his first comic, which was Black Panther. You know, what are some of the things that you have noticed as an artist? So I'm going to tamp this down a little bit. You've noticed as an artist that are things that newer writers have to work on when creating that relationship with an artist. Couched.
That as I said in the beginning, it's a different language. These are very accomplished writers, but that's a different language altogether. You're coming into comics, as Gabby has said, that's a different animal. You're like, I only got a couple words, maybe a sentence or 2 per panel, that's all. Maybe they could get 1 or 2 little back and forths, and that's all. It's a lot to give up all of those words that come with writing prose and boil it down to just this action and this couple sentences. That's difficult. So they're looking at it going, as I told you, just snapshot, look at a Polaroid. That's all you get. That's all. You're just describing this one Polaroid. The moment you need to some other action to take place, take another picture, describe that picture, and that's all you get. So it's that thing where they're putting too much, or they don't trust me to do my job, meaning they're doing such research, so heavy to the point where they're doing camera angles and direction. So you're telling me how to do my job at that point. You're overwhelming me, so I can't see that movie that I spoke of, that I'm reading it and I can like visualize this thing as if I'm reading a book. Just to read a book, you fall in and you just visualize, you're walking through the world. I'm walking through the script, but I can't. If you're telling me, and he stands on the left side and he's about 3/4 trillion, let me show you some pictures. I've got a million little picture links I'm going to put in this script for you. And like, so you don't trust me. That immediately tells me that you have no confidence in my work. So I want to know why you're working with me at all. So that's the big part for me. Trust me to do my job because I'm trusting you to have done your job.
Word. So, you know, for you, Gabby, how do you approach that?
I mean, listen, you learn fast, right? Like, it's also like you write the script, right? And then if you're coming with a new artist, so for me, it was like I learned a lot from what I did with America. And it was like looking at my scripts and then looking at the finished comic and kind of reviewing and seeing how much, like you said, how much direction I'm putting per panel, where it is literally like, no, like distill. It has to be the purest, the most simple, like the most like, what emotion do I want from each panel? You know what I mean? Like really boiling it down. And I'm learning, right, to just, you know, talk to the artist for real and be like, what can I offer you? What am I not giving you in the script? What do you need? You know what I mean? And asking folks what is the best way to work with them too. I mean, for me, like I said, I'm learning now. I'm letting the page breathe, like letting these images breathe. So if I am trying to have BB do a dance, right? Instead of being like, panel 1, BB is dancing, the night is full, the crickets are chirping, everyone is there. That's like, I've already in 3 lines created like 3 pages worth of work. And so it's nice to just be able to let the page breathe and be like, no, this one whole page is for a BB to spin. That's all she's gonna do. She's just gonna do one half little turn, full body, and like Alitha said, you just gotta trust the artist. Sometimes, and now Alitha, this is a question for you. I don't know if this is annoying, but sometimes when I have something really wild, right? Like you know, the ancestral plane, right, that we showed before. I had never seen that. All I wrote was like, the beginning of the galaxy, everything is purple and orange and brand new. And in the note, I wrote to the artist, I want you to just run with that. Whatever you imagine that, let's see it. So sometimes I will expressly do that, even though I know that that's like the gist of the whole script, to be like, yo, we're in this together. Like, please, like, you're gonna astonish me. Don't try to like in any way limit what you're doing to match what I want, because I want what you got.
Yeah, it's interesting when they start to speak in too many metaphors, when it becomes too highly descriptive, something that I would read in a novel, it actually disrupts the picture for me sometimes, because it becomes like, okay, exactly, you want me to describe the color orange. I'm not the colorist. I can't do that. I can't see what you're seeing in that sense. You have to, as again, describe that snapshot.
Yep.
You're not describing, I know, like all these wonderful, sometimes it helps, like it's the time of night, the evening, if it's winter, those things become important to hear. But if it's this giant descriptive language and it's like paragraph, I mean, I have gotten scripts that are like bricks because they're like half of a novella. And you're like, what the?
Okay. And also, there's a little bit of like editor work that had like but you know, if you're getting scripts that are like that, you're kind of like, wait, what is the editor?
Yeah, like describing like things like the bra and panty that will never be seen, but just for me to know that this is the kind, you know, the kind that they don't match. And like, did I need to know that? I didn't need to know that. That would be cute if I was reading it as a novella. That's great. But for something I have to draw to time, that is just eating up too much of my energy to try to figure out what you want. Yeah. So ultimately, I just need that picture described. And I know that's no creativity whatsoever. Well, whoever said comics was creative? It's expressive, but not all that creative.
Yes.
Word. So for both of you, and I'm kind of intrigued, do either of you, and I feel like, Alitha, we've already established that Superman might be the answer to this question. Do you have a dream project or character that you want to work on, write, or create?
Yes, we know I want Superman, but I want Namor too. You don't understand. I love Namor. I hate that every time they draw him, no. Don't stop doing that to my beloved Namor. Let me have him. Let me enjoy Namor.
You're not a fan of sexy Namor?
Oh, I love sexy Namor, but he should be Sephiroth sexy. You know what I mean? The hair, just that look, like, yes, and you're welcome. Thank you. Just every page should be a thank you. Just that. What is this? What is these brooding characters? And then he fights people, and then maybe he walks around naked once or twice. Yes, we heard that. But still, Why are they deep in their feelings? Give me their ragged, give me the fight scenes. Give me just that. Oh, let me see the hair flowing. I'm gonna go watch Final Fantasy now.
An underwater fight scene immediately.
Yes.
Now.
Allow me to have him and let me do what I want, not have to conform to the wings that the little flaming trident. He doesn't need a flaming trident.
Yeah. Alitha has a lot of feels. I'm gonna let Alitha process those feels. Gabby, do you have feelings like Alitha has for Namor?
I love comics, man. You see how I love them.
It is pure.
I can't stop daydreaming about doing like a Lolita LeBron comic. She was a Puerto Rican nationalist. She like shot up Congress in 1954 in the name of a free Puerto Rico, free from U.S. enterprise, capitalism, abuse, all that stuff. And I just think that her story would just be such a beautiful graphic novel. So there's that dream project. And man, listen, if I could do a tank girl, that would be super cool. That's all I got.
So you're getting close.
No, I am.
Let's bring Tank Girl to the Bronx, right? Like, let's bring Tank Girl to the Bronx. Like, let's have her tank be created by like 2 or 3 homegirls who live near a junkyard and like take on the streets of Fordham Road.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, we're gonna talk about this offline. So for both of you, as we kind of like wind out everything, curious for those out there who are watching, what are you working on now? Where can folks see your work? What do you have coming up? Because I know both of you are still steadily working right now. Start off with Alitha.
Well, they haven't announced the book I'm on yet, so I don't get to have that pleasure. So that's coming down the road when we're out of all of this quarantine. But for myself, while I'm working for other people, I get to do some covers for some books. I just did. I don't even think I could say that one yet. But for myself, I'm working on my foreign, and one of these days I will draw another issue of Yumi and Ever. But foreign, that's easy for me to do and produce just because it's prose. And it's something I've written like 10 years ago. So it's just typing and getting it into the computer and getting it out to the printers, meaning the printers in my house that are sitting behind me. So that and just draw. Yeah. And then my one sweatshop worker. Yes. And my office manager cats. I have 2 office managers that are cats. But other than that, it's just that daily grind of the page, just getting it out there so that by the end of the year, there'll be something to see, something new on the market for everybody to digest.
Awesome. What about you, Gabby?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you're like interested in me talking about joy, I got a Joy Revolution podcast. It's out now, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that stuff. So Joy Revolution podcast. I mean, listen, Juliet Takes a Breath is, oh, look, there's the image. Yeah, Joy Revolution on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. Me talking to queer people of color about joy and how we prioritize it in these wild and unpredictable times. Juliet, oh my God, Juliet is out hardcover. Like, wait, here we go. Oh, look at that. Yes, you can kind of get that anywhere. I would say hit up your local bookstores for Juliet. Reach out to your local comic book stops and ask if they have BB Free in stock. Yeah, BB Free behind me. That is also available for PDF download on my website, GabbyRivera.com. And, I just want to give you all the work. So take it, love it. That's what I'm doing.
Word. And I kind of want to close it out because I love shouting out other folks. Are there any artists or writers or even musicians, because we have a soundtrack to our lives that both of you are listening to right now, that you want to shout out, or any other folks that you feel like are like doing dope stuff in the industry?
The new Red album, and I swore today as the Blue Angels and Thunderbirds flew overhead, I heard that old Van Halen song playing in my mind. So that was great. Yes. And can I just mention my website's name because I never
did. Please.
Yeah, ariadstorm.com, so you can see my beloved foreign look just here because I love drawing jets, indeed.
Look at
That's
that.
what we produce at home. But yeah, and we've been listening to weird music lately because we listen to a lot of death metal, so don't go by me. No.
What about you, Gabby?
I mean, right now I've been listening to a lot of Black Messiah, D'Angelo. Just like it feels really important and current again for some reason, and it's been helping me find that like creative space. And then I think an artist that I'm in community with that is doing such incredible work is Lawrence Lindell. He's a graphic cartoonist, and he's got his like autobiography out called From Truth with Truth, and it's about being like Black and queer and having mental health stuff and like still finding joy and in the middle of everything, and also like punk rock. It's like all of these things, yeah. And Lawrence Lindell's on Instagram, and his book is called From Truth with Truth.
Word. Well, I want to thank you both so much. As we close out, can you let everybody know where to follow you on the interwebs?
Yay! Well, I'm Ariat Storm on just about every platform except I think Facebook is Alitha E. Martinez, but Twitter, Ariat Storm, Instagram, Ariat Storm, hashtag Ariat Storm everywhere. And of course, my website, www.ariatstorm.com.
Hey. And I'm Gabby Rivera. You can find me on Instagram at Quirky Rican, QUIRKY Rican. You can also find me on Twitter too, but Twitter is really scary. So mostly I'm on Instagram. My website is gabbyrivera.com and at Joy Revolution Podcast on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm Angélique Roché. This has been amazing. And just thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for bringing all of your amazing questions. And a reminder that today's African Diaspora Women in Comics Talk is a part of the Caribbean Culture Center's current exhibition, The Color of Power, Heroes, Sheros, and Their Creators. And you just got to hear from two creators. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please continue to share this link, share the replay, and leave your comments, suggestions, and questions in the comment box. Have a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Read comics, read